Hey everyone, in this video we're going to be talking about why B and C students sometimes and often end up being more successful and wealthy than straight A students. So as you may know, there's been a lot of young students who have been discovering my channel and watching my videos on how to get better grades. In order to help serve them, I've been making videos on how to get better grades. However, I think a lot of them seem to have this implied belief that straight A's is what is necessary to succeed in life. Now, don't get me wrong, in certain situations and certain scenarios, it definitely helps. As someone from the immigrant Asian generation and culture, we know for sure that that's what our parents believed. And so getting good grades and getting into a Ivy League school were some of the biggest things on the forefront of our parents' minds, which caused us to really focus on school above all else. Now, there is definitely still some viability to that. When you look at Mark Zuckerberg, Steve Jobs, Jeff Bezos, they did very well in school. They got straight A's, they got very good, or in Bill Gates' case, perfect scores on the SAT. And of course, they went to Harvard or some established university. However, when you expand the puzzle and you've studied successful people as long as I have, read hundreds of books on millionaires and successful people, that doesn't always span true for the rest of the world. There are people who had a degree from Harvard and then they failed to get a good job afterwards. And because of how presumptive they are and how much they believe in that, they find it a crutch. If you read the book Rework by Jason Fried, who founded a successful company, Basecamp, he mentions how when you look at the Fortune 500 CEOs, more of them went to a state university than a Ivy League university. And then there's even Robert Kiyosaki, famed writer of the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which is one of the most iconic, influential books on switching your mindset to a millionaire mindset. He wrote another book titled something along the lines of how straight A students end up working for B and C students. So this is by no means a message to say that you shouldn't still aim for straight A's as much as you can. Of course, use the tips, the tools, and so forth, because I do believe getting good grades is still valuable, even though, certain entrepreneurial YouTube channels may not agree with that. I am saying that if you still, despite your best effort and all those tips, cannot get straight A's or straight B's, not all hope is lost. And even if you do get straight A's and you get into an Ivy League school, you can't get complacent. There's plenty of people who get complacent or egotistical. There's this viral video of this Harvard student who goes on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. And she's so presumptive about how amazing she is because she went to this school that she flubs an easy question. So, same thing with real life. You can't just be presumptive. Tim Ferriss, the famous podcaster and angel investor, he mentions, I think in one of his books, how, or maybe it was his podcast, but he mentions how when he first got out of his school, he went to Princeton, he starts to intern for this startup, and he meets this guy there who's been working there for several years, who went to some even fancier Ivy League school. And this guy was still there after like several years out of school, still barely making any money and interning at the startup. And that's not what you want to happen. You don't want to, just assume everything's going to be dandy because of this degree. The degree is just a piece of paper. And you'd be surprised how little emphasis that gets when you're being interviewed for a job. The employer cares about, can you get the job done? Can you get it done well? What's any proof that you can get the job done? Have you have any projects or experience doing that stuff and doing it well? Those things will matter more than which school you went to. Now, they'll probably give a little bit extra emphasis if you went to a certain school, but just keep that in mind. Yes, I think getting good grades and getting a certificate, according to Dr. Geoffrey Miller, is a good proxy to your overall intelligence and capabilities. But that's just one area of your potential in life. Book smarts, IQ, those rational reasoning skills, while valuable, are just one part of the equation. And that's why, certain people succeed in one area and don't in another. There's a lot of theories behind why this happens, but I do believe that, regardless of your performance in the academic sphere, you can cultivate other areas to succeed in those other areas. And that includes working on your emotional intelligence, working on your ability to succeed in certain soft skills or hard skills that actually are applicable to the real world, whether that's leadership, communication with others, whether that's the ability to innovate, or just the ability to do your job well that people would pay for. Okay, maybe you were able to hack the school system using tips on YouTube, but how does that translate into your new job of being a graphic designer or being a marketer? It doesn't matter if you were able to hack the school system and do well in geology class and social studies and psychology if none of that really translates to being able to design logos well because you're a graphic designer, or being able to run Facebook ads well because you're now a Facebook ads manager. So just keep that in mind. The school is partially a system that you have to hack. And quite frankly, at some point, I would suggest you step away and say, okay, that's a game, but how many of these topics actually will help me in real life? And sometimes you realize, I don't really care for geography or social studies or calculus because I'll never have to use this in my pursuit of whatever else you're trying to pursue, whether that's pharmacy school or being a lawyer or being a YouTuber, whatever it is. So keep that in mind. And I know some of it's already deep inside you and you partially know these as truths. So it's time to really consider that and work on that. And of course, once you hit college, you can start already moving in that direction because they let you choose a major, which means that if you don't have an interest in math, oftentimes, and you choose a different major in like something else, you won't have to take math classes anymore. So I think that's helpful, but I think the whole entrepreneurial space on YouTube and social media is definitely pushing this idea that school has no use anymore, or school isn't applicable to real life. That's an extreme view that I don't believe in. I think there's still a lot of merit to school, and there's still going to be a lot of high demand and competition to get into a Harvard, or even some state universities are getting very competitive. So definitely, that's still a good thing to work towards. The networking alone could be useful once you get into those schools. However, long story short, just keep in mind, you also have to look at the bigger picture here, because there are certain disadvantages or cons to school. Think about it. There's certain courses in entrepreneurialism, on actually being able to run a Shopify store, on managing your financial income. They don't teach certain things in school that are so much more worth it, whether that's on compound interest, real estate, taxes, validating a product idea. Frankly, I've taken college courses, business courses, and honestly, you could probably learn some things better online yourself, whether through paid courses or free courses, And unfortunately, the school system has to catch up. We don't care as much about these broad topics about supply chain economics as much as we do on how to start your own Shopify store, on the power of financial independence and managing assets and owning assets rather than purchasing and spending money on liabilities. Those are things they don't teach in school. So it depends really on where you want to go in life. But for certain areas like med school, being a lawyer, engineer, of course, school definitely still has value. So, depends on where you want to go. But just keep in mind that straight A's alone doesn't always guarantee success. And that could be very valuable to you and help you in the long run. Shout out to the people out there who are still trying. And I hope this helps you reach your potential. By the way, some people have been commenting about lighting and, setting up the camera differently. I've done that. I've woken up, filmed this when there's still daylight. However, keep in mind, I have and always will be doing this for fun. I've had those feedback for years now. And let's just be frank, sometimes I want to film at night when I have an idea. This channel is for my own fun, and that's that. I don't want to spend 2 hours creating a YouTube thumbnail for extra 1,000 views when that's just not part of my goals for the channel. So this video I don't think is going to get lots of views anyways, so I'm not going to follow all those tips. So that's it. Oh yeah, one last thing. Dave Rubinstein, he recently wrote a book on leadership. He's a billionaire and he is a philanthropist, and he had a whole passage at the start of his book on the different stages of life and how many people who succeed at the first stage of life, and he's referring to school, fail at the second or third stage. And he gave his own theories as to why or why not. I didn't always agree with his theories, but I wanted to share some of them to you for your own consideration. He says stuff like, in the first stage, maybe some people just burn out and they try so hard that in the second stage they don't have enough emphasis. Another thing is, he points to luck. Some people have athletic talent, academic talent, all these things already in the first stage, which he didn't have. But then in the second stage, all of a sudden something sparked, and it was his leadership ability and hitting the right groups at the right times. So if you're not succeeding in the first stage of life, do not despair. You never know what's going to happen. One thing would be the famed director Steven Spielberg. He was an ordinary kid first stage of his life, nothing spectacular. I remember reading this millionaire book by this random millionaire, not famous at all, and he said this guy Steven Spielberg used to be in his band class in high school, and this guy was unnoticeable, average in every way, almost mediocre. But in the second stage of life, that's when he found his talents and it blossomed, which happened to be film. So you never know. Thanks for watching.